a tactic by the enemy. This is a tactic of Satan. He goes after believers who are insecure. He loads them down with a bunch of responsibilities because they're insecure and they feel like, well, if I do this, if I do that, if I do this, if I do that, if I help this person, I'm okay. And if I enable this person, people with low insecurity always fall for this trick of the enemy. The Bible says know Satan tactics, his weapons, his plots, his plans against you. Satan goes after insecure believers in many ways, but this way, he puts all this responsibility, and the person agrees so they could feel better about themselves. Well, if I run myself into the ground, I'll feel better about myself. And really, all that does is make them get high again, or it brings them back into the world, or it brings them back in a backslidden state, or it makes them bitter. You ever notice people with a lot of responsibility are really bitter. Why? Because they don't have the grace to do it. When God gives you the grace to do something, he helps you. Grace is an enabler. Grace is God's help. So, when God asks us to do something, he gives us the grace to do it. But the insecure believer goes around trying to make themselves feel better by helping people, and they wind up helping the wrong people because they want to feel better about themselves. Then it blows up in their face like a gun. It backfires in their face, or like smoking a crack pipe. It blows up in their face because their motive wasn't right anyway. They weren't really trying to help the person. They wanted to help them so they could feel good. That's impure. That's unclean. That's perversion. So the insecure believer goes around trying to be Superman, and it's not God's will. They're trying to be a super Christian, and it's not God's will. Half the stuff that they're doing is not even from the Lord. They're just doing it so they can feel better about themselves, so they can brag, so they can boast, so they can tell the world what they're doing, so they can feel better about themselves, and they're in competition. This is all pride, by the way. This is all pride. So one of Satan's tactics is going after the insecure believer by loading them down with a bunch of responsibilities that are not from the Lord. So then the believer winds up going back in the world, has no energy, so they get high, or they start drinking again, or they start doing things, or they sleep all the time, or they'll go back to sleeping, or they start doing things that are not of God for energy. Because Satan has put responsibility on them that is not from the Lord. So they don't have the grace to do it. Then they lose hope and they fall into a slimy pit. This is a tactic from the enemy. Christ cares.